Hello friends, this is the second lecture of Introduction to Logic. In the first lecture, what we have discussed about the lecture plan, we have also discussed about the basic concepts and so on. So while I was discussing about the lecture plan, I told you that there can be 40 to 42 lectures. I have already uploaded that on Moodle, so you can download it from there. The important thing is that we have already we have told you that there can be 40 to 42 lectures, but there can be more or less depending upon whether there will be more assignments, there will be quizzes and so on. So those things we will be following up, and we will be informing you as and when those things will be finalized. We have also discussed about the basic concepts yesterday. Basic concepts like letter, word and sentence, which was very basic. It's more like a language rather than logic. Then we came to certain important things like statements, the a priori propositions, the a posteriori propositions and so on. We also took certain examples, certain understanding of it, that how these propositions are understood and so on. Given my past experience with Introduction to Logic, students have told me that there is a need to do a lot of examples, there is also a need to do a lot of questions and so on. So what I am planning to do is that there will be lectures, like in the introductory part of the course, you will find that we have around 4 to 5 lectures. But then there will be certain, I will say, independent lectures which will be precisely for question solving. That means we will be doing a lot of questions in that. So you can call it a tutorial. Though in this course we do not have a tutorial as such, but we can always have problem solving sessions. So what we will do is that we will have general lectures, like say lecture 1. This is going to be, this lecture is lecture 2 actually. So like around 4 to 5 lectures will be there for the introductory part. And then you will find that corresponding to these things, there will be some problem solving sessions. So we will have some problem solving lectures again. Apart from that, we will also have normal classes. As per the timetable, there will be classes, but these lectures will be uploaded. There will be classes, and there will be some problem solving sessions as well. That can be arranged live, or that can be recorded as well, depending upon the requirement. But we will have a lot of questions. So what I will try is that in these parts, the stress will be, or the understanding will be, that we should cover the syllabus. That means we should cover the topics, which are required to complete our syllabus and so on. In the problem solving session, we will be taking a lot of examples, a lot of questions, so that you feel comfortable with those areas. And whatever is your doubts, whatever is your apprehension, you can always put those things. And these will be available in Moodle. I will put all these things in Moodle, that is the LMS software which we are using. We will be also putting it on YouTube. So I have my own channel, and you will be getting the link of it, so it will be there. And we will also have it on the G Drive. Okay, so we will be also having it on the Google Drive, so you can access it from there. And apart from that, if you are traveling to the university for some reason or the other, so you can always contact me directly, because I will be more or less most of the time in my office during the office hours. So you can directly take the material if you are an enrolled student or if you are a registered student of this course. So that's not going to be a problem. The material will be there. Moreover, we will be also providing you the links of these things on internet. Like there are a lot of places on internet, we know, and we will be sharing it, from where you can download a lot of material. And there are also a lot of links in YouTube, where you can also study these things, though may not be exactly the way we are taking this course, because every course is different in some fashion or the other, but still you will have enough of material to cover these things. So materials and the subject matter is something which is not going to be a problem. You have to put a little bit of effort. Initially logic becomes a little bit difficult, but later on it becomes easier and easier. So this was like, the lecture plan is already uploaded in the Moodle. Then you have these basic concepts and so on. We have taken some questions for a priori and a posteriori propositions. As I told you that there will be some problem solving session, so we will have that as well. And with this we will be continuing this. So this is going to be the format of the course. So we will have some normal lectures, we will have some classes, definitely we will have classes as per the timetable, so that will also be there. So what is there? You can always study the lecture, you can come prepared for the class. So it can also act as a problem solving session or a doubt clearing session. Then we will have problem solving lectures as well. We will provide you some links, and we will be putting the material in Moodle or on Moodle on YouTube, and also it will be available in the drive. So from there also you can download. The links will be already available. So that was this part. That means this is what we have covered in the last class, and we will start with the today's class now. Okay, so today in the first part of the lecture, what we are planning to discuss is that we have already discussed statements in the last slide, right? That there are statements, or what we call as propositions, and they are of a priori and a posteriori type. Now today we will try to understand what is an argument. First thing first, why this argument is important, this is something which I am going to tell you after that. Then we will talk about a classification. There can be again many ways through which you can classify. A classification of a concept can depend on a lot of issues. In this course, we usually and very succinctly follow this, that this will be divided into two parts, deductive and inductive arguments. So what are those kind of arguments and so on, we will be discussing. But right now we know that what is a statement. If you remember that statements are declarative sentences, and they are also called as propositions. So this is something which we have already discussed, and we have also discussed the types of propositions, that is a priori propositions and a posteriori propositions, with the help of examples. Now we will come to an argument. Usually, normally, or say in common language parlance, what we use is that an argument is something where people have disputed about something, or they have debated about something. That is not a basic idea of an argument, but that is how the meaning of it is conveyed. Now, if you want to understand what is an argument, so basic or an easy way to understand that how you can understand the concept of an argument. An argument is basically having two parts. What are these two parts? An argument is having one part that is called premises, and there is another part which we call as conclusion. So argument is basically a set of what? Statements or propositions, which contains two things, premises and conclusion. So it goes without saying that premises and conclusion all will be statements. That means they will be declarative sentences, they are propositions, and so on. So that is very well understood. Now what kind of set is an argument? Like anything can be an argument. If you understand premises, what is premises? Let us first try to understand what is a premise. A premise is basically something which is given in an argument. So what we say, that in an argument, if we take certain premises, if we take certain declarative sentences as something that is given, like suppose if you remember in our school days we have taken proofs. So somebody asked us that, okay, prove this. So what we used to say, that there is something which is given, then what we need to prove, then how we prove, and then the conclusion. So in that proof, what is given, that which has already been given, is understood as premises. So premises is something which is already available with us, and through this, through what is given, we try to come out with. So we come out with something which is called as the conclusion. So all of them will be propositions, all of them will be statements. Now what is the idea? That something will be given, and by virtue of that, if we can come out with something, we can conclude something, so that is going to be a conclusion. So usually if you see, what is an argument? An argument will have, say, suppose if I name, say, premise 1, premise 2, up to premise n. So there are premises, these are premises, and this is the conclusion. So you can see that it is a set of propositions, it is a set of statements, it is a set of declarative sentences. So we have premise 1, premise 2, up to premise n, and we have a conclusion. So these are the premises and something is the conclusion, so it becomes an argument. it still does not become an argument, because if you see, these are all declarative sentences. Nobody knows what is the premise and what is the conclusion. Okay, we have designated them as premise and conclusion, but we do not know yet how we will understand that something is a conclusion. We say that something is claimed. If I put this therefore sign, what does it say? That from P1, P2 up to Pn, this follows. So now this become an argument. So there has to be, now if suppose somebody asks you what is an argument. So argument is a set of statements, propositions or declarative sentences which is divided into premises and conclusion. That is the first thing. And there is a claim. There is a claim. This is the claim. This is the claim which I am talking about. This is the claim that the conclusion follows from the premises. Unless there is a claim, you cannot call it an argument. An argument has to have this claim. If there is no claim, then you can always say that it is a set of premises, it is a set of declarative sentences, it is a set of statements, it can be anything. Unless I claim that from these premises, if this is following, therefore I am writing this therefore sign, then it becomes an argument. So very important, this is something which we should understand, that an argument will always have a certain set of declarative sentences which will be divided into premises and conclusion. And how we differentiate between premise and conclusion? Premises are those which are given, and conclusion is that which is obtained out of it, which comes out of it, right? Which is claimed out of it. So this claim is very important. Without this, this will never become an argument. So this is an important thing. This is something which we should understand. So this is how an argument is formed. Now, once we understand that this is an argument, now what are the things which we have to understand? That they can be divided into what are the things which we have to cover in the syllabus? They can be divided into two parts. This is a classification, the deductive and the inductive. Now how we will take it, like suppose if I remove these things and keep only this part. So arguments are divided into two parts. So if I put these as arguments, so they are divided into two parts, deductive and inductive. Now again, deductive and inductive also has a history. In very old books of logic, you will find a very different definition of deductive logic and inductive logic, or deductive arguments and inductive arguments, which has been more or less overthrown. Now what was that old understanding? Deductive logic, usually people used to say that when we move from something which is universal to something which is particular, then it is deductive. Okay, so this was the understanding. So the movement from universal to particular, or say from a universal proposition to a particular proposition. If we have talked about like all, like if I say all swans are white, and from there if you conclude some swans are white, so that kind of understanding used to be deductive. On the other hand, in inductive logic, people used to say that it is a movement from particular to universal. So this was the understanding, the old understanding. Now this has to be kept in mind that it is old, first thing first, and it is more or less being overthrown. So this is not the right understanding, or it is not an apt understanding. It can give you some understanding that what is deductive logic and what is inductive logic, or what is deductive argument and what is inductive argument, but it is not the right understanding. This is something which we need to understand. So argument will have premises and conclusion. So if the premise is a very universal premise and a particular conclusion comes out, so usually it used to be said as that it is deductive logic. On the other hand, if the premises are very particular types and from it we are deriving something which is universal, so it used to be called as an inductive understanding. But this has been overthrown. This is not the way through which we understand. So we need to change our understanding and come to the new understanding. Okay, so what is deductive logic and what is inductive logic? The contemporary understanding of deductive logic and inductive logic is something which we need to understand, which is definitely based on the old understanding, but still it is quite different from it and something which has to be very clear in our minds. Now, what is deductive logic? Now, suppose if we have premises, say suppose P1, P2 up to Pn. So these are the premises and this is the conclusion for deductive logic. So before we understand deductive logic and inductive logic, we can parallelly also understand one more thing, that is the concept of validity and invalidity. So let us first define what is valid. Now, validity is basically a property of an argument. This is something which we should be very clear about, that validity is basically the property of an argument, whereas truth or falsity is the property of a statement. So we should not confuse. There can be books which can tell you that an argument is true or false, or a statement is valid or invalid, but that is not the convention which we follow. In mostly logicians will say that an argument is either valid or invalid. We will come to invalid. Whichever argument is not valid is going to be invalid argument. So we will once we define validity, the rest all will be invalid. And truth or falsity is basically a property of statement. So this is the first thing which we should remember. Now coming to the second thing, that is argument validity. Now, what is validity? Validity says that suppose if these premises are true, fine, and an argument is valid, then the conclusion has to be true as well. So if you say in a formal way, it will be that in deductive logic, if the premises are true, then the conclusion has to be true in order to become a valid argument. So another way of putting it is as that there is no substitution instance which can make the premises true and the conclusion false. So this is another way of putting validity. So validity is a very formal notion. And why it is a formal notion? Because it just tells us one thing, and it tells that there is no possible way in which, if the premises are true, all of them has to be true. If all the premises are true, then the conclusion can never be false. It cannot be false. It has to be true as well. That is the understanding of validity. Seems very simple, right? So if all the premises are true, say suppose these are all true, these are all the value of P1, P2, P3 and P4, and we have a conclusion. So the conclusion, if I write it here, so its value also is to be true. Now this understanding is the understanding of validity. So an argument will be valid if all the values of premises are true and the conclusion is true. In any other way, the argument can be invalid. In any other way, the argument can be valid as well. Now it is a little bit confusing. So how we need to define, or how we understand invalidity? Invalidity says that if the premises are true and the conclusion is false, then this argument is definitely invalid. And one thing more which we need to understand, this validity and invalidity is basically associated with deductive logic. This part is basically a part of deductive logic. We are right now not talking about inductive logic. In inductive logic, the notions which we are similar to validity or invalidity, or which are analogous to validity or invalidity, are strong and weak. Here the arguments are not measured, or the parameter of checking an inductive argument is not validity or invalidity, rather than it is strength and weakness. So we call an argument strong, or we call an argument weak. We can call an argument strengthened, we can call an argument very strong, immensely strong, and we can also call very weak, immensely weak. So those kind of things are associated with inductive logic. On the other hand, in deductive logic, the notion of validity and invalidity is discussed. So this is another way of understanding the thing. But still, what is deductive argument? A deductive argument follows the rules of validity. Fine. So what does it say? It says that in deductive logic, an argument, or in deductive argument, an argument is going to be valid if all the premises are true, then the conclusion has to be true. It is by necessity. This relation, the relation between these is the relation of necessity. So you understand that this argument has to be necessarily true. So this thing has to be there. So it is by necessity. On the other hand, in inductive logic, if suppose somebody asks you what is an argument and how we calculate the strength or weakness. So here we have premises, say premise 1, premise 2, premise 3 up to premise n, and there is a conclusion. So a strong argument will be when there is high probability. High probability for what? High probability for the conclusion to be true. If these are true, then the conclusion is having very high probability. So an argument is going to be strong. On the other hand, the argument is going to be weak if it is having very, very less probability, right? So very like if the probability goes down, the argument is weak. If the probability goes higher, then the argument is stronger. So this kind of understanding is there in inductive logic. So there is absolutely no necessity. We do not say that in inductive logic, if the premises are true, the conclusion has to be true. We cannot say that. We say if the premises are true, then there is a lot of chance. It is probable. There is a lot of the probability is higher that the conclusion will be true, but we cannot say that it has to be true. It is necessarily true. This is something which we cannot say. On the other hand, if we talk about valid arguments, in valid arguments, if the premises are true, then the conclusion has to be true. This is the understanding that the conclusion has to be true. There is absolutely no way in which the probability or the notions of probability will come. It is out of necessity. However, it is out of probability. So this is one thing which we need to understand. But there is more to it in valid and invalidity case, and that can be a little bit confusing for students, or confusing at the first go, but later on as we solve a lot of questions, it becomes clear. As I told you at the first part of the lecture, that we will be having a lot of problem solving session. So what we are planning to do is that right now we are more interested in understanding the concepts. Once we understand the concepts, we will have a lot of question answer session, a lot of practice session. In that we will take a lot of questions. Usually in any science or in any studies, people will say that once you make yourself theoretically strong, you can do very good with questions. It is true, or it is a right, or say it's a true sentence for this course as well. But in this course, one thing more follows. The more you do questions, the more theoretically strong you become as well. So this is like both ways. You study the theory strong, you study the theory with absolute rigor, and you grasp the notions, you refer to many books, you understand the concept, then you start solving the questions, so you solve the questions better. True, there is absolutely no doubt about it. But if you do a lot of questions, you will also understand certain basic nitty-gritties of this theory. So you need to, even if this looks very simple, that okay, if the premises are true, the conclusion has to be true, or if the premises are true, the conclusion cannot be false. Here it is probable, we call it strong or weak. Here we call it, say, valid or invalid, is one part of it. So in the next part of this lecture, what we are planning to do, we are planning to take certain very, I will say, counterintuitive questions, which will be the part of this lecture only, for our better understanding of this subject. Okay, so before we start with this very interesting chart, very important chart of the premises, conclusion, and whether we can determine the validity or invalidity of an argument, I have a small request to make. Right now I will talk about the theoretical part of it. the examples of it, as I told you, is something which we will be taking up in the other part, that is the problem solving session and all. So what we need to understand here is that this may put some problems in your mind, right? And as you can see that it looks very much like a table which we usually solve in mathematics, or which we usually solve in any kind of sciences. So it will be easier for you to follow. But the word of caution is that it may put a lot of things in your mind, and you may start getting a little bit confused. But do not worry about it. The first stage is a little bit of confusion. The second stage will be clarity. So let your mind be a little bit convoluted with this understanding that what is it which is happening right now. Once you will understand that that there is some problem with these concepts, and you will try to seek the truth, the clarity will come. Okay, so do not worry about it, but try to follow. Now this is what I am going to give you. Now suppose we have right now defined, you already know that how the premises and how the conclusion will follow in the last part of the lecture you have seen. So what is an argument and what is valid or invalid. So now suppose if I make a normal truth table kind of thing, I am not getting into what is a truth table and this and that, we will follow it in the next part. But you know about all these things, truth table, you have studied these things in your schools, so I am not explaining all these things. Suppose if in one arrangement all the premises are true and the conclusion is also true. So this is one arrangement. Then the second arrangement is if the premises are true, the conclusion is false. So this is another arrangement. The third arrangement, that premises are false and the conclusion is true. So this is, and if the premises are false and the conclusion is false as well. So this is the four cases. Now the first case, the second case, the third case and the fourth case we know that this is this is a very general or basic truth table which you can draw. Now what will be the status of validity or invalidity? So for validity we will write V, and for invalidity we will write I. So you must be very clear about this, that if the premises are true and the conclusion is true, so what will be an argument, right? Now if I ask this, that if the premises are true and the conclusion is also true, then what kind of argument will it be? So I am right now not taking a head count or a hand count, or I am not asking you to respond to this question, but as I know by my experience in the classes, most of the students will say if the premises are true and the conclusion is true, then the argument is valid, right? And maybe it is your answer as well. But the truth is that the argument can be valid or it can be invalid as well. So the argument can be valid or invalid. Why I am saying this? Now this can bring a little bit of problem in your mind. That if the premises are true and the conclusion is true, you just told us that there is no possible way. I am still holding this. That if the premises are true and the conclusion is true, then the argument is valid. For sure, it can be valid, but it can be invalid as well. Why? Because if you remember, and if you can go back to the slide, or if you can go back to the video, I have talked about one concept which I have not explained there. I said that there is no substitution instance which can make the premises true and the conclusion false, right? Now what does it mean? That if we can make all the premises true and the conclusion is also true, then the argument is valid. But if all the premises are true and still there can be a substitution instance which can make the conclusion false, then it will be invalid for sure. But even an invalid argument, the truth is that even an invalid argument can have true premises and true conclusion. There can be an argument which is invalid. It is having true premises and true conclusion. And by just looking into the truth of all the premises and conclusion, you cannot find it out. And how to find it out is something which we will be discussing in the next part. So, but you should remember that if the premises are true and the conclusion is true, then whether the argument is valid or invalid, it can be both. It can be valid, it can be invalid. How to determine, how to calculate, how to prove or something is something which we will be discussing the next part. Now let us come to the second part. If the premises are true and the conclusion is false. Now you may be confused because in the first part you were very sure that the argument has to be valid, but now it is invalid. In this part, this is also we have discussed in the last, that if the premises are true and the conclusion is false, that what will be the nature of the argument, and the nature of the argument will be same. It is going to be invalid. There is no possible way in which it can be valid, because validity actually denies this case. Validity says that if the premises are true and the conclusion is false, then that argument cannot be valid. So it can never be valid, but it is an invalid argument. The same goes in these two cases. If the question is, if the premises are false and the conclusion is true, so you might be confused that if the premises are false and the conclusion is true, we do not know, but we know that it can be either valid. Again, it can be either valid or invalid. Mark my words, for the time being, as soon as we will be taking more questions, we will understand that how these things are following. But if you check with the argument, and therefore I say that theoretically we need to be very strong. It says that there is no possible way, or there is no substitution instance which can make the premises true and the conclusion false. Now, if there is no possible way in which all the premises can be true together, so that case will never come. So it can be either valid or invalid. So this is the understanding, and it is a little bit difficult to gulp at the first, or when we are taking cognizance of these concepts for the first time. But later on it becomes simpler, and with more examples you will understand it. Last, if the premises are false and the conclusion is also false. So usually again the answer, as per my experience in the classes, will be that if the premises are false and the conclusion is false, then the argument has to be invalid. For sure, it is invalid. But it can also be valid. And try to understand again one thing. The truth of the premises or the conclusion depends on what? Depends on the factual content of the statement, right? So whenever we talk about truth or falsity, what we are talking about? The truth or falsity of the statements. On the other hand, when we talk about validity or invalidity, we talk about the structure. This is important. We are not right now concerned with the statement of fact. We are not concerned with whether the statement will be true or false and this and that. We are not concerned. We are only concerned about the structure. So whether the structure forms or the form of the argument is valid. So if you see, validity or invalidity is a formal notion. Okay. Truth and falsity can also be a formal notion, but it may also be a non-formal notion. I am not using this word informal rather than non-formal. Or it can be a statement of fact. The truth of a proposition can be derived through statement of fact, as I told you. It can be also derived through a structure of the statement as well. We have discussed both these things. So this is a pure formal notion. There is no reason or there is no scope for statement of facts or something like that. But when we talk about premises and conclusion, it may be based on the statement of fact. But when we talk about the validity or invalidity, we have to take care of the structure, and we talk about the robustness of that structure. Whether the structure is robust enough to be called as valid, or whether the structure is not robust and it may not be called valid. So that understanding has to be very clear in our minds. Once this is clear, and if this table, if you see that this is a very interesting table, if in this case, if the premises are true and the conclusion is true, the argument can be both valid or invalid. If the premises are true and the conclusion is false, then the argument is invalid. This is the only case where you will not find validity. In rest all the cases you will find validity, and in all the 4 cases you will find invalidity, right? So whenever we are checking, now we will be discussing a lot of ways, lot of proof methods through which deriving validity, right? We will be talking about a lot of proof constructions in this course. We will talk about rules of inference, we will talk about rules of replacement, we will talk about conditional proofs and the indirect proofs, the standard conditional proofs, and so on. Lot of things are there. Now these are very new developments, right? These are developments which has taken place, say, in last 200-250 years. Beforehand, how people used to derive whether an argument is valid or invalid, and this is a very interesting thing you will understand. They used to develop what we call as counter example technique. Now what is a counter example technique? Suppose an argument is given. We will talk about it in the question answer session. There is a question which is given, and suppose in that you will find the premises true and the conclusion true. So how to derive whether that argument is valid or invalid, or if it is, like, if there is an argument where the premises are true and the conclusion false, you have to not check anything. You can directly say that it is an invalid argument. But in rest 3 cases, you will find that it is going to be a difficult bargain. How to say? Then people used to develop a counter example. Counter example means that you retain the structure. What you do? You retain the structure of argument. Retain the structure of argument. So first thing, then you change the values. The second step, this is the first step. The second step will be to change the values. So you change the values of the argument or the premises in such a fashion that can you make the premises true and conclusion false? If you can make the premises true and conclusion false, you can very well be sure of that this argument is going to be invalid. If you cannot make it, if by every possible way you cannot make it, then only you used to claim that no, this argument structure is so strong that irrespective of the fact that we put any substitution instance, we cannot make the premises true and the conclusion false. We cannot make, right? Now once we cannot make, there is no possible way, there is no way through which we can make it, we used to pronounce that argument as valid. Now this is an old technique, right? And this is an old technique which has now more or less gone. You will not find in much of the logical books. But this is the way people used to argue at that point of time. Right now we have very sophisticated methods. We will be using a lot of symbolic notations and so on to find out how to calculate the validity or the invalidity of an argument. But this is the way. But this table is going to be very interesting, and this is something which you should always keep in your mind, that irrespective of the fact that the premises are false and the conclusion is true, or the premises are false and the conclusion is also false, the argument can be valid. It can be invalid. It can be invalid in every case, but it can be valid. And definitely when the premises are true and the conclusion is true as well, the argument can be invalid. Now these are very counterintuitive results. If the premises are true and the conclusion is true and the argument is invalid, it sounds a little bit counterintuitive. Similarly, if the premises are false and the argument is valid, if the premises and conclusion both are false and still the argument is valid, so this sounds like a little bit like how to understand it and so on. You will understand it with more questions, but right now for the time being, remember this table, it is going to be very good. Thank you.